Greetings, brothers and sisters. So, this video was supposed to go up on this channel yesterday, and for reasons I'm not going to get into, I put it up on my other channel. Hilaria Baldwin finally admits that she wants to clip Alex's nuts, Tweeter Hunter reveal, and more Alex Jones and yay. And so you can find this on my Apocalypse Now channel if you haven't subscribed to that. So that's why I didn't put a video up yesterday on this channel. And so I'm just going to do a brief video today, and then I'll start my my latest version of Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies. I got a whole bunch of stuff to get into. The Cell movie and that weird behavior with animals walking around in circles and all this. But I just had a few short things to cover here, and then I want to get into a Trump thing and a past life thing in the narrative portion of this video. So first, here on Saturday Night Live, they have to make bad jokes about yay. Like it's a necessity. So here we go there.
Alex Jones and Kanye West got together this week, and it didn't go great.
So that's supposed to be a joke, right?
Kanye West made anti-Semitic jokes and said, "I like Hitler," which is also the password he used to get into Mar-a-Lago.
That was your joke, right? That's their joke. Donald J. Trump just got an award from the Zionist, whatever it was. I covered this in another video. That said he was the greatest friend Israel ever had in the White House. And Bibi, the former prime minister or president of Israel, Netanyahu, loved the guy. And he was disappointed. He said he didn't want to take sides, but Israel really loved Trump, right? Aside from that, he has his son-in-law, who's one of his daughter Ivanka and his son Jared Kushner are the people who had the biggest influence over Trump, right? And so there was no sense that Trump was anti-Semitic or was into Hitler. And so this is just, the joke's premise is completely flawed, right? Trump is, if anything, he's over-influenced and controlled by Israel. But this is how Saturday Night Live sucks, right? They lump everyone together, which is the whole, to be racist is to lump everyone together. And, to say that all this group of people is horrible, all that group of people is horrible. Every one of them, right? Every person in that demographic is this way. And, they're trying to link this. You can see it in the other thing that I'm doing. The Ye is off on his own thing, right? And it has nothing to do with Trump, right? And so, and Trump's relationship to Jewish people, and even Alex Jones, who has been accused of being sort of, doing disinformation and being influenced by Jewish people, like his wife, his ex-wife was supposed to be, part Jewish, something like this, right? Part Jewish, So, these are more sophisticated storylines and narratives here. And they just lump everyone together, like this is, Ye's doing this thing, and they're white supremacists, all this stuff, right? And it's clearly, and the joke fails. It's not funny as it is, but it's not truthful either.
At this point, I don't think Kanye is off his meds so much as he's immune to them. Basically dealing with the Omicron variant of Kanye.
Okay, so, this is promoting what he said, right? The reason that you deplatform Alex Jones and you deplatform Ye and you deplatform the other guy that was with them, whatever his name is, who cares, Nick Fuentes, is that you don't allow the majority of people to hear what they're saying. That there'll be people who search them out. There'll be people who will find them in some privatized, whatever it is, Trump's Truth Social, right? But you prevent them from being, out there for everybody, right? So when you leave the big platforms and you leave the big search engines, people have to work to find you. And I've noticed it here. People say, oh, well, we want to listen to you, but they don't want to work for it, right? Even to the point that there's people who don't understand they have two channels now and that I post things on both channels. Someone wrote the other day, oh yeah, on my other channel, they were implying on my Apocalypse Now channel that this channel, the Pockets of the Future channel, was gone. Right? Like, and I didn't post on it anymore or whatever. So people just don't work for it. And that's why you deplatform people. But if this is the worst thing, according to them, that Kanye has said, and they take a deplatformed video clips from Alex Jones, right? And they put these things up, these comments up, just like they did with Kyrie. They're promoting these comments and these attitudes. They're pushing them out there. So if you deplatform somebody, and then the worst thing that happens on their show, either Alex Jones' show or Ye's, whatever, and then you push it out there and you tell everyone what was said, well, what's the purpose of deplatforming them, right? Like maybe so that you can control the context of what they're saying, but still, you're using it. So, like why bother deplatforming people?
What I don't understand about this
That's not, why are you smiling? You're not a comedian. You're not funny. You got the Gumby Doo. The Gumby Doo is like circulating, right? There's there's Joe, Morning Joe gets the Gumby Doo, and Alec Baldwin.
Jews do control the media, then how are we still seeing a new interview with Kanye every day?
Yeah, how are we? Like, why is it happening? Why are you doing this? So that's what they're doing to reason with this thing, right?
Also, if Jews control the media, explain the 80-foot Christmas tree outside of NBC.
Woo! He's hilarious, insightful, woo! So All In with Chris Hayes has got some context. Trump defends January 6 rioters after pressure from Kanye and Fuentes. They're dead naming him. That's called dead naming when you use somebody's old name. But they, it's okay with Kanye, with Ye.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. The three faces of the modern conservative movement and Republican Party are dragging each other further and further along a downward spiral.
Are they? This is about that.
2 months ago, the official Twitter account of the Republicans of the House Judiciary Committee posted a simple message, an endorsement, a proclamation, a manifesto in tweet-length form, if you will, which, if you were here with us last night, I argue, defined and defines the current Republican Party better than Jim Jordan probably ever intended to.
No way. This is it. This Kanye, Elon, Trump.
Kanye, Elon, Trump.
Kanye, Elon, Trump.
They were finally forced to delete that tweet yesterday after Kanye West's months-long anti-Semitic meltdown reached
You mean Ye? You dead naming him?
fever pitch on Alex Jones' far-right streaming show, where West, donning a black hood, similar to those he's periodically worn in public for years, ignored repeated opportunities to distance himself from extremist movements, instead explicitly praising Adolf Hitler and the Nazis on multiple occasions.
Kablawi.
It was disgusting stuff.
It was disgusting. Hayes is disgusted.
He's been doing this for a while now. When he sat down for a fawning softball interview with Tucker Carlson 2 months.
You mean like the interview that Jimmy Kimmel gave to Hunter Biden? Now, there's a monster story out, which I cover in my video yesterday. And that is that Hunter Biden, the tweeter made up things to censor the story by the New York Post, a true story about Hunter Biden's laptop, which would have cost Jojo Magoo the election. So the election was rigged by social media and the regular media. And they're not covering it. Like now they're not covering it again. It's a huge story. Maybe the biggest story of any of these things. It had real life results, and I'll get into why it's okay with them in a moment. Why that's okay. But that story's not being covered by any of these guys. Here he is.
Bluff. This is a common theme in some of the most extremist circles in MAGA world, right? Trump has abandoned the insurrectionists. Fuentes himself has been very critical of Trump's 2024 campaign kickoff.
Yeah, he totally abandoned him, right? He brought him up there and he abandoned him. That was the worst thing he did. He's disloyal to the people that, enthusiastically supported him, and he sold them out. Let's get to the end here.
Very, very strongly in the coming weeks, months, and over the next period of a year, year and a half, during the campaign. People have been treated unconstitutionally, in my opinion, and very, very unfairly. And we're going to get to the bottom of it. And you know what I've said. I take it very seriously. I have never seen anything like it.
Say what you will about the guy. He clearly did his homework before giving that address. Now, I don't think people have tracked this, so let me just...
Who watches this guy? He's like unwatchable. Like they're all bad. This guy's particularly unwatchable.
recap here, because there's so much bizarreness that it's hard to
Too much bizarreness. He's got to recap the bizarreness.
Follow thread. So here's what happened. Kanye goes to Mar-a-Lago to sort of challenge Trump a bit, right? Thinks he's sort of lost his way. He says he told Trump that he was not being loyal enough to the insurrectionists, not loyal enough to the base, to his most diehard and extremist fans. And then just days later, Trump sends a message of support to a group attempting to paint the insurrectionists as political prisoners and looking to free them.
So I want to get into my narrative section here. But what you're leaving out here, and again, they're leaving out huge chunks of information, both Saturday Night Live and this clown. But the revelation, which we're going to get into now with Hunter Biden and Twitter, that there was a cover-up and there was an intent that spanned across government and social media and regular media, and the Republican Party was in on it, and everybody else, to censor a major story that would have changed the outcome of the election. Trump would have gotten a second term. And when you leave that out, because that's a conspiracy, people conspired to make that happen. And when you don't cover that story in this context of what's going on with Ye and all these other things, because that's a part of this story, and Elon Musk and everyone else, right? That there was a cover-up and the American people were defrauded. And, let's get into it here. I talk about it here in the narrative. So I want to cover two things in the narrative portion of this video. And I want to get into this Trump stuff, and then I want to get into past lives, because I covered this in my last two videos on either of my other channel and this channel. Or it was actually they both went up on my other channel, but I want to talk about it here as well and add something to it. So there is a simple reason behind the Democratic fall, the fall of democracy and the fall of the Democratic Party, and the media and all the people involved in it, and social media particularly. And so there is a story out there now that Twitter interfered with the information process and ignored or censored, not ignored, it censored a story from the New York Post, a true story, that Hunter Biden's laptop had inflammatory, criminal, and God knows what else embarrassing things for his father and himself, the crackhead son. He dropped his laptop in a bathtub, and a series of them. He had 3 laptops that were all, somehow he brought them into his bathtub and dropped them in there. And one of them was salvageable. One of the hard drives was salvageable. And some guy, he left it there and forgot about it because he's a crackhead. Didn't even know it was there. The guy tried to contact him but couldn't get it back. And the guy found out what was on it and handed it over to the FBI. And the FBI, in coordination with all of the media, decided to hide this from all of us, right? They decided to hide this from everybody. They decided to say, hey, this isn't something that you guys should know about, right? Which is totally messed up. You really need to understand this, how messed up that is. They didn't allow us to get the information and make a decision about who we want to elect for president based in all the information that should have been available right before the election. That Jojo Magoo is a person of poor character who raised a crackhead son, a son who impregnated a stripper named Dallas, who's from Arkansas, and tried to fight that off and not pay child support, not acknowledge any of this, and not give his financial information to the court there because it would be damaging to his father's campaign, and it would cut off his money ticket, his free ride of selling influence to foreign governments and foreign corporations and God knows who else, and get money so he could support his crack habit while he's banging his dead brother's wife and running around with handguns and all these things, right? It's an epic story. It is the most scandalous story of a relative of a vice president and then a president now. And they hid it away. The FBI hid it, social media hid it, and mainstream media hid it, and they're still not covering it now because it's embarrassing to all of them. Because it's a story that they were responsible to get out there because it's their job to make sure that we have all the pertinent information, and that was pertinent information, but they hid it from us, saying that we don't know better, that we can't handle this information because we'll vote for Trump. I wouldn't, but people would. And people would vote for Trump, and they wouldn't vote for Jojo Magoo. And that would be bad for them. And I'll tell you why in a second, why it's such a, there's a thinking error behind all this, right? And so they hid the information, which is against what their job is, right? And it's against what democracy is. And now it's come out, like now it's, this is Elon Musk put out all the information from Twitter that they conspired, it was a conspiracy, to hide a story that was true. And, an epic story, an October surprise that would have changed the outcome of the election. And Trump himself failed to make this a big deal. Like he said it a little bit in the debate, but like people didn't even know about it. Most people didn't know about it. And so it's, it's a rigging of the election. And we've heard over and over again that Trump and his supporters are called election deniers. But we now know that the election was tampered with and rigged from a media standpoint, a political standpoint, and from a body of the government, a body of the intelligence community that hid a story away. There was another story in there, too, where the Secret Service were investigating a handgun that Trump's daughter-in-law, his dead son's widow, who then started to bang Hunter Biden, right, was worried that Hunter was going to use his handgun and commit suicide. So she threw it in the trash can next to a high school, which if anybody else did, someone would be going to jail, right? It was a loaded gun. Some homeless guy ended up grabbing it out of the trash can, but some high school kid could have got it. I mean, that's not how gun control, right? These guys, whatever. And so the Secret Service and the FBI all were investigating this, and they kept that hush-hush, and that was a part of the laptop story. And so they withheld pertinent information from the American people. And the media, everybody was complicit. This was a story it was their duty to cover, regardless of which candidate they wanted to win. But the reason, and I think I've said this in past videos, but it needs to be stated here more than any other time. The reason is they believe that Trump is, you can see like he's the most evil, worst possible person, some despot, on the level of somebody like Hitler, right? Like he's that kind of a guy. And they should do anything to prevent that guy from getting reelected. That was their mindset. And they said it. They came out and said it. And no matter what they had to do to prevent this guy from getting reelected, it was okay. No matter what level of slime, what level of, evil what rules they had to violate, no matter what they had to do. And some guy came out and said it, right? Some guy came out and said, somebody admitted this. I forget the guy, right? We talked about like the rigging of the election. But whatever they had to do to get rid of Trump was okay. Because the American people could not decide for themselves. The Trumpers were just too racist, too ignorant, too uneducated, too emotional, too whatever. The people that liked Trump and would vote for Trump, and anybody else who didn't see what they saw, was that this was a potential evil, that if this guy got reelected, that the country would be ruined, that they could do anything to the electoral process, to all of it, right? They could rig the system against him. And that when Hillary was not elected, when Hillary lost, it was because of social media and the Russians, right? And that's what the report said. There was a joint report by the NSA, CIA, and FBI. And they said that some Russian hackers hacked Podesta, hacked the DNC, and they rigged the election against Hillary. Even though Hillary had twice the money and she had, most of the media. And, Fox News was only sort of into Trump, right? The Republican establishment was even against Trump. And so why did she lose, right? Because of Russia Today, some obscure Russia sort of, almost truther-like channel that's out there? No. Why did she lose? She lost because no one liked her. But they blame social media. And they realize that nobody tunes into regular media anymore. And as long as social media existed, they weren't going to be able to control the outcome of things. And they control all these things. And so no matter how bad a character or person Jojo Magoo is, no matter, whether he's wearing adult diapers or not, and he's senile, none of that stuff matters. He's a controlled entity that they're putting in there, a controlled entity that will do what they say. And Trump had his handlers as well. Like Trump, it wasn't like Trump was completely out of on his own, but Trump was a little bit more of a rogue going rogue. And he didn't act presidential. He didn't act like a president was supposed to. He tweeted in the middle of the night. He got petty. He did things that presidents weren't supposed to do. And he wasn't a part of their club. And he was, but he wasn't. He wasn't in their buying. So whatever they had to do was okay. And now you see it playing out because they can't cover the story because the story goes beyond Twitter. They're all of their hands are dirty in this. And they won't come out and admit the truth that they know more than the American people. The American people can't be left to gather information for themselves and post it on social media and come up with their own conclusions because they have to control that. And if they don't control that, then they don't control anything, right? Because, people can start thinking for themselves. And lots of people shouldn't think for themselves, right? I mean, they should, but they shouldn't, right? They're not good at it. Like, there's lots of people in the truth community, they just always come up with the wrong answers. Like, they come up with goofy stuff. I mean, it's not like there isn't some merit to their argument because, most people are too dopey to think for themselves, right? They just don't have the ability because they're not, they're crazy in such a way, or they're just stupid in such a way. Or they have, really what it is low consciousness. And they can't be reasoned with. I mean, you see the way things trend. You see, like, challenges that happen, where people will, like, eat Tide Pods or do whatever, right? Like, just stupid stuff. You look at the level of consciousness. So you go to a Walmart and you look around you and you see where people are at. And the truth of the matter is that the people that run the system have never felt comfortable with the average person having power in the government or any of these things. So they've created an illusionary system of freedom of choice that never existed. And Trump kind of exposed that. And then the internet has exposed that. And now here we are, right, where they're trying to regain control. And Ye and all these people are part of this. They want to make excuses in this crypto thing. The crypto, the guy stealing the money and whatever it is, FTX. And so they can control crypto. They can control what you say on the internet, more and more controls. And, this thing with Elon Musk violates that, finding ways. I mean, it's the number one thing now is to stop people from spreading so-called conspiracy. It's their number one agenda. It's their number one, this is so dangerous. It's their number one fear. And they're doing everything they can to suppress information on the internet because of that. Because people, in their minds, can't handle this power of researching and figuring things out for themselves and making their own decisions because in some cases they can. And they have to control it, right? The people who control the system have to control this or they don't really control anything. So their obsession with Trump is something more, right? It's their obsession with control. And Trump represents the loss of control. Trump sucks. Like, Trump isn't even a real, it's just it's all of this stuff that's behind it, right? And people who don't accept the official narrative, and it's fewer and fewer people, and people don't tune into the news, and they, they don't listen to politicians. And so they get their information through social media. And once that happened, the loss of control is inevitable, right? It's already happened because the information now is, often faulty information. It's often, disinformation, but still it's beyond their ability to control. And so I want to also talk about this thing with past lives. I covered it, like I said, in my last couple of videos. And I got a couple of comments from Christian people saying, how wrong I was and I didn't have past lives and, it's not a real thing. And so I thought I would add something to what I said yesterday. So if you look here is Bethlehem, right? Church of the Nativity, this is where Jesus was said to have been born. And this is Jerusalem here. As you scroll out, this is a part of, Israel here. And as you scroll out, you understand the region there. You have Israel, the greater country of Israel. And then you see that here's the other countries around it. All these Egyptian countries. It's close to the continent of Africa, really. It's like neighboring there. And over here you have India, which is very close here. And these people, all in this region, they got influenced by Indian spiritual development. India had epic spiritual development. And it's where human beings, at least this version of human beings, learned about the idea of a soul. And this was something that influenced all the other religions here, right? So, Buddhism, it came from India, and it's up in here, and then these countries here where I'm not sure where Muhammad was. Mecca was in Saudi Arabia, right? That's where Muhammad was. So this whole region is responsible for the 4 major religions, right? And all of them were influenced by India. India played a role because of their development in the field of spirituality. And so what's important to understand here is that the idea of a soul is the basis of all these religions. And there are stories that are in every religion that came from, well, first of all, India and other parts of the area, right? When the religions were being developed, and a lot of it is word of mouth and people, telling stories and sharing stories. Like, for example, the character of Karna from the Mahabharata has a very similar story in terms of being placed in a basket by his mother and sent down the river to the story of Moses, right? And Karna came before Moses. Hinduism became before Judaism. And so the story of Moses starts off as the story of Karna, right? And there are stories that were lifted from various other religions. There are stories about Horus, the Eye of Horus, that are very similar to the story about Jesus, right? And Horus was before Jesus. And so these various, there's mythology that makes its way into all the religions. The religions are interconnected through this region of the world where they all were established in the beginning. And Judaism and Islam and Christianity are all intertwined. They're all from that region there, and they have similar understanding that all came from Hinduism, like the idea of a soul and these various things. But then as the religious hierarchy took over and they started to want to change and warp the teachings and the traditions of what they were saying so that they could better control the people, and they all made decisions about that, right? And one of them was, how do we deal with reincarnation, which was a fundamental belief of the soul. If you have an eternal soul, then it has to come from somewhere, right? If the earth has been here for billions of years, the planet, the universe, and you have just been born, after the creation has been established for billions of years, where was your soul before? And where is your soul going to go afterwards, right? For the next, quadrillions of years or whatever it is. before the universe implodes. It's very important to understand this because it's essential to all of your people's belief systems. And so the way the Christianity dealt with it, because Jesus talked about his past lives, he talked about people he was in previous existences, and that's you can find that it was edited out of the Bible, but he talked about it frequently. He said, I was this person, I was that person. I forget, I knew at one point, but now now I would have to go look it up, and I'm not going to do it. You can look it up if you want. But he talked about having past lives because everyone in that region at that time believed in it. And there was like I said, an influence of the discoveries that were there from ancient India. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of years ago. And then, even more recently in 5,000 years ago when the Mahabharata ended. And so there was, all that happened in India influenced the other parts of the region, and they all understood that there was this idea of reincarnation. But there was a Council of Nicaea, and there was these other things that were, that transpired, where individual human beings who were power hungry decided to edit out things from the purity of the religions and their stories, right? Like Jesus' story and Jesus' teachings. They just took things out. They changed them. They not only took things out, but they changed them. And one of those things was reincarnation. Because think about the power that the Christian religion has over Christians. The power that it's a one-off, and that you are going to either go to hell or heaven. And they're the arbiters. Your ability to be a good Christian and do what the Christian leadership tells you what to do will get you in with Jesus, who will bring you to his Father and say, this guy is a good Christian, he should go to heaven. And anybody else who's doing anything else is going to hell. I mean, think of the power in that, right? And so you listening to me now and listening to a different opinion, you're being a bad Christian because you're not following their rhetoric, their Bible, their construct. And by entertaining other ideas, you're going to hell, and you're not being a good Christian. And all the rest of us who do any sort of spiritual worship, whether it be some other religion, whether it be spirituality, whether it be meditation, whether it be Aboriginal people, Druids, pagans, any other form of spirituality is demonic, and it's satanic, and you're going to hell for doing it. Think of the power there, and the evil and the division that it's an evil. That's an evil. Those are evil MNFers right there, right? And warping your belief system that you grew up with, that you've been told this since you were a young kid, that if you believed or entertained any of these ideas, you're going to hell. And hell's a horrible place where you'll suffer for eternity. And so, you're not getting right with the religion, with the construct that they've created. That's what's going to happen to you in the afterlife, right? And the only way to save yourself is to do what the religion tells you to do. Give them your money, give them your allegiance. It's really evil. It's a good scam because they got you, right? Anytime you do anything else, you're like going to question yourself. Oh, this must be demonic. Anytime, something goes wrong, right? Something is like, for example, when you do the Sahaj Marg Heartfulness system, there's a cleaning process where things will come up, unpleasant things in your system. And if you come from a Christian background, you're going to think those things are demonic because they're unpleasant. And then you're going to run back to Christianity. I mean, they got you. They've indoctrinated you. And, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, the different types of personalities that are there. And so, that's what's happened here. And if there's reincarnation, it blows up that whole story. If you understand that you're coming back here, it's like a video game. And this is, your first life, your second life, your third life. And to get to the end of the video game, you have to continuously work and pick up from where you left off. and that you're not going to hell or heaven, that you're more than likely, 99.9% of people are not going to graduate from the earthly bondage. You're here until you graduate. You're here until you finally, solve the game. You finally beat the big boss. You finally master yourself, right? You understand that, right? It's very simple. And so reincarnation blows that up. It blows up any sort of religious control, even in Hinduism, even in the religion where it's, mostly talked about. Because if there's reincarnation, then you have to get in contact with God directly. And you have to, go past your perception, your 3D perception, your third dimensional perception, and penetrate beyond the fourth dimension of time and connect with your past lives and, pick up where you left off and clean off the things that you made that were mistakes that are keeping you bound to planet Earth, and to build upon the good things that you did in the past so that you can move forward, right? And so there's an understanding of reality that comes when you understand there's previous lives and future lives, whether they're here or somewhere else. And there are lots of people who this is their first life as a human, or they're just, they're not very developed. And for them, religion is great. For them, their religion is, the best that they could do. They're not ready to connect to God directly. They're not ready for they don't have the ability for abstract thought. It's something like 60% of the people can't really think in an abstract way. They just don't have it. And when people like that come to my channel, they're just not, it's not here. This isn't for you, right? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe you can, like I said, you can reach up and jump up to a higher level. But, religion for those people is good because they're not going to do spirituality. They don't really have the capacity to connect to God at a higher level. They just don't even understand, like when you talk about, they don't even understand the concept. They can't really, they just look at you blankly, right? And so for them, it's great, right? And there's plenty of stuff for them. There's plenty of dumb shit out there for dumbs, for dum-dums, right? There's plenty of stupid to go around. Stupid movies, stupid TV shows, stupid religions, kindergarten level stuff. And there's very little stuff for more gifted people, just like in school. All the attention goes to the dum-dums, right? All the attention goes to the misbehaving and the remedial and the people who, have to have the things explained to them over and over again. And the first thing that they cut when there's budgetary issues is for gifted and talented people. Because people who are of a higher level consciousness are often, they're a minority, right? And so you don't see a lot of like really intelligent TV shows and movies, or really, beyond intelligence, like a different vibration, a different resonating on a different level. There's just a lot of stuff for stupid people. And stupid people, who end up denying that they're on a lower level. And that's the real problem. There's lots of people who are on a lower level, and they know it when they're kids. But as they grow up, they think that they're smarter or more evolved than people who are, on a different trajectory or on a higher level, right? And there's we all have to go through the lower levels. It's not like there's some shame in that, right? We all start off, in any situation as a newbie, you start off as a newbie, right? When I started making videos, my videos sucked a lot more than they suck now, right? You have to gain experience. You have to gain some mastery over your craft, whatever it is. There's no shame in sucking at something or being a newbie, right? But, you got to recognize that there's higher levels, and everyone should recognize that there is things to aspire for. And if you can't do it in this life, you can do it in your next life, that you can rise up, right? But people are, they're set where they are. They're happy with their mediocrity. They're happy with their low level of consciousness, and they look down on anything that's beyond what they, their limited, view of reality. And so, most Christians ignore the biggest thing that Jesus did, and that's he transcended his religion. He was born as a Jewish person, and he left that religion and he connected to God directly, or at least through some spiritual training that he received. Perhaps, there's lots of evidence it was in India. I believe that it was in India. And he became a spiritual person. And that's something where, lots of us have done, that we've ascended, we've transcended our religion. We've went from where a third party says they have control over your connection to God. They're a middleman between you and God, to where you have connection with God directly, right? And, that changes everything. When you have direct communication with God and that you're making decisions and you include God in those decisions, it's transformational. There's a period in my life when I was 29 where that happened for me, and everything's changed since then, right? And what's great about this YouTube channel, what's great about what I do here, comes from that, that relationship with the divine, right? Which the Sahaj Marg system has graciously brought to me, which I'm grateful for, because it's a system that helps people to directly connect to God, right? And the difference between me and many of you, many of you religious people, is that when I was confronted with the collapse of the current master of the system, who's just gone into some dope realm, right? And I have every reason, given my past experience with his divinity and some of the things that he ascended to a high level of spirituality and has fallen in some way. And it was in my best interest in some ways, as an ego, as a person, to just pretend I didn't see what I saw. You guys who watch my Journey series, just to pretend that the guy was getting it done and that the organization was doing what it's supposed to do. Because for me, it would be easier, and it would be certainly, better for me in certain ways, to just pretend that everything was cool, that everything wasn't, there wasn't some huge epic problem, right? But I couldn't do that, right? I couldn't do that because it wasn't the truth, right? I couldn't, allow his, his whatever has happened to him and whatever's happened to the organization that I, still am, completely dependent on in terms of my, the sittings and the meditation and the process and, the greatness that was there from the three previous masters. But I couldn't ignore it, right? And most of you, the information's right in front of you, and I'm giving you information now about how your religion has indoctrinated you and tricked you and has used you and has, prejudiced you against something that's better for you. And most of you can't do that. Most Christians can't, confront that. Just like most practitioners of the Heartfulness system can't confront what's happened to Daji. And I'm covering that in a, long video I'm making about my 81st addition to the Journey series. I get into the people who, many of them are, smarter than me or, as smart as me or, around as smart as me. And they're more devoted and more into Sahaj Marg than I am. But they just can't go there. They just can't, they don't have the capacity to face the truth, right? Most people just, it's an unpleasant truth. And we all have to deal with it, right? When there's corruption, when evil sets in your organization, and the purity of the message and the system gets, demonized in some way, in an evil way. And you got to be able to, see it for what it is, right? And not, you're not looking for it, but when you see it and it's unpleasant to see, you have to see it. You have to see it. You have to feel it. You have to be honest with yourself. And most people can't do that because it's just easier not to. And people have defense mechanisms that kick in, right? When they see their dad cheating on their mom, or they experience their mom, they see their mom smoking crack or whatever it might be, right? And they just, they blank it out like it never happened. People refuse to see things. They erase their own memories, right? Like if you ever saw that movie, Memento, an excellent movie where the guy has lost all long-term memory and he has all these tattoos. He's written everything down. And the movie takes place in reverse order. And there's a period where, he's chasing this guy, John G., who killed his wife. And people are using him to murder other people and saying that that guy's John G, the person he kills. And some guy, some cop who's been manipulating him, says, I'm a John G. You killed John G a long time ago, and now we're working you. And he gets that information, and and so his purpose for his life is over because he doesn't remember anything. He doesn't remember. He's not going to remember anything else. So all he has was that one thing he knew, which was he had to kill his wife's killer. When he finds out he already did that, he then kills this other guy who told him because he doesn't want that truth, and he forgets, and he goes out and he's constantly searching for this guy John G that's already dead, right? And it's an interesting, when he had the choice to face the truth, his existence would end. He doesn't have any, future. All he has is this one task that he can, pretend to himself he's constantly completing this one search for something he's already found years and years ago. And, most people, that's what they do. When they realize that, that they've been living a lie and they've been following bad people and they, that they've been deceived in some way, they can't deal with it. And that's for everybody. So all these people who can't confront their religion, the religion is the worst thing. A religion that tells you can't connect to God directly and that you can only connect to God through them. And if you don't do what they say, you're going to hell, or, if you do what you say, you're going to go to heaven. Reward and fear and temptation is the weapons of a religion to control you. It's an evil thing because it messes with your divine right, that divinity resides within you and you can connect to God. And they're not helping you do that. In fact, they're preventing you from doing that, which is, why the world's so effed up. Because people are disconnected from their souls and they're disconnected from God. And it starts with religions and then it gets into government, Hollywood, and all these things. It's easy for you to see Hollywood being satanic, but it's not easy for you to see your religion being satanic. And that is what it is. And if you can't do it, you can't do it. It's not, if you're limited in some way, sure. But just don't, drop it on my doorstep, right? The people that can, the people that are beyond you, well then, don't crap all over them, right? That's, that's been my rule here. Go somewhere else. If it's too much for you, if you're, whatever it is, but if you're going to, crap out something out of your Google hole, it's satanic. Like somebody wrote a comment saying that I was under the influence of evil spirits because I believed in my past life experiences. Because, you've been warped in some way and you're a fear-based person who's been told this, this indoctrinated set of lies, and you can't confront those lies, and that's fine. Just don't, go somewhere else, right? Go somewhere where people are going to lie to you, right? Go somewhere where it's going to support your belief system. Don't come here because you're not ready for it. Anyways, my video's up on my other channel. This is a continuation of that, and I'll get to my, my next dropping like flies, and I'll, tonight or tomorrow, and then everything will flow back to the way it was. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.